The Spanish writer Jorge Semprun is an exceptional witness to events in the 20th century. He was born in Madrid but spent a large part of his life in Paris, where he still lives. A member of the French resistance, he was arrested and sent to a concentration camp. Having survived, he joined the Communist Party to continue his fight against Franco. At 85, Semprun is still writing. He spoke to Euronews about Europe and the controversial re-examination of the Franco era in Spain.
Before we begin, thank you for welcoming Euronews into your home. Senor Semprun, it's almost a month since the European elections. The outcome was very bad for the left, the socialists. How do you explain this phenomenon?
It's hard to explain. I'll try to answer in a global sense. We can say it's not just a problem for France or Spain, not just a national problem. We're at the end of an era of predominance by the left and the socialists, leaving aside the hard left, who never had much influence on the destiny of Europe. So why is there a crisis? It's paradoxical because at a time of global crisis in capitalism, a social democrat solution would seem obvious. An equitable, balanced, reformist solution. But no, we can't find one. It's a phenomenon of huge historical importance, and ultimately the outcome is difficult to predict.
Could the record low turnout be linked to the collapse of the left? Because historically, the lower the turnout, the worse the socialist results.
In Europe and in the rest of the world, there's been a crisis in the parliamentary system for years. And this crisis is manifest in several ways. Low regard for the political class in general is one cause. Above all, fundamentally, there's the turnout problem, which has been falling across Europe. Abstentionism has been rife in all the European elections. There's a mistaken belief in public opinion that these elections are less important than regional or legislative elections in each country. This abstentionism is reaching shocking, dangerous, alarming levels.
One of the phrases that stands out from your book, European Man, which you wrote with the former French Premier Dominique de Villepin, is, "The greatest danger Europe faces is apathy." Are we in an era of apathy?
Unfortunately, we're reverting to an era of apathy. This phrase comes from a German philosopher of the 1930s and is equally valid today. The greatest danger is apathy, disenchantment, indifference, and it comes from everything we're not offering our young people. We offer them things that interest them a lot, like university exchanges, worldwide travel, but we don't offer them a common global project. Why Europe? What is our role? What does it signify? We have to offer them more than an Erasmus program.
You were a victim of the Second World War. You survived a Nazi concentration camp. Your memories and those of a great many of your generation, do you think they count for little with following generations?
These memories are losing their main source of sustenance, the victims. In a little time, there'll be no one left to say, "I saw it," just as the Spanish painter Goya signed some of his paintings and engravings. Memory becomes history, and it's okay that memory survives as history. But we must deal with this problem now. I don't think we can base any European project on memories of the past and mistakes to avoid. We must present something more positive to the young, not simply memories, but the future, and that's the dilemma.
usted también se puede considerar como una víctima del...
You could also be considered a victim of the Franco regime because you were obliged to live in exile from your
El gobierno
adolescence.
socialista ha aprobado una ley, o aprobó una ley hace 2 años.
2 years ago, the Spanish government approved a law to compensate the victims of Franco. What's your view on that?
Para resarcir a las víctimas del franquismo. ¿Cuál es su opinión sobre esta ley?
Bueno, yo no me considero víctima porque las víctimas...
I don't consider myself to be a victim of Franco.
La represión.
The victims are those who quietly endured the repression. It's a somewhat exaggerated distinction to say that, but I consider that because I fought against it, I wasn't a victim, but an actor in this period of history. The reconstruction of democracy in Spain brought victory to the democratic values that were defeated in the Civil War. We have to restore a balance so that everyone has the right to be remembered and exist historically. The victims, the families of the victims of reprisals, the families of the assassinated, etc. It's a complicated process, but essential. We could do with a long moment of amnesia and an amnesty to reconstruct democracy. Today democracy is strong enough and consolidated enough, perhaps, to even pay for the luxury of a full account of the past. We have to remember everything, the good, the bad, one and all.
El juez Baltasar Garzón ha intentado...
Judge Baltasar Garzón is trying to launch a legal process against the Franco dictatorship. It's creating a huge controversy in Spain.
Muchos críticos le acusan de...
Critics say these proceedings will reopen rather than heal old wounds.
Las heridas que las cierran.
I think
it's a problem that has to be dealt with very carefully, because to reconstruct the past, if we do it in a heavy-handed or incorrect way, it'll reopen wounds. Even though I believe those injuries have been soothed by the passage of time and the arrival of new generations, I think Spanish society needs to keep remembering, just as once it needed amnesia. That's essential.
Como tenía necesidad de amnesia hace unos años, tiene necesidad de memoria, y que eso es lo esencial.
Señor Semprun, muchas gracias.
Gracias a usted.